Hello everybody. I want to do a quick video here talking about grammar, about that document that I posted on Moodle, the grammar explanations. So maybe I'll go through some of the stuff, probably with commas mostly, because I think those are, that's like the big one that people have a lot of trouble with. And I also got, I think, one question from you guys that I will try to answer as well. All right. So let's start off with commas. Oh yeah, I should say too, I noticed a lot of people, I asked for questions about grammar. A lot of people responded like, no, I don't have a question. That's not really what I was looking for, you know? I would have appreciated if you guys could have thought of some sort of confusion about grammar. I find it hard to believe that you all consider yourself grammar experts and know everything about it. Not that I am a grammar expert and know everything about it either. Like I say, I'm a little bit, but I feel like I'm can at least look this stuff up and get back to you guys, which is why I asked for questions. So would have appreciated a few more actual questions maybe. But anyway, so I just want to talk about some of the different uses of commas that I lift that I put here. So if you look at the top of this document, the grammar explanations, I listed this isn't all of the situations where you need to use a comma, but these are like the main ones. And if you get a hold of these, then you'll be using your commas right most of the time. Um, so the first one I have here, it says an opening phrase. This is when you start a sentence with something like however or on the other hand. Um, I wanted to make sure I had like a written document for this just because I think the examples work so much better than I can really explain it on the video. So I'll just kind of go over them a little bit. But I think that one makes sense. There's other words that this happens with, like since or although or while. Sometimes it depends on the construction of the sentence. Like for although, there's sometimes where the comma goes to the beginning, where your sentence will be like, although this was not the case. Um, and sometimes when you start a sentence with although, the comma goes in the middle of it. Like if you said, although this was not the case, Jim thought that it was. So that one, it would go in the middle after the word case. So it depends on the construction of the sentence sometimes, but there's a lot of words like this where if you start with them, you have the comma right after it there at the beginning. A non-essential clause, this one's a little confusing. So really, you do this when it's like a part of the sentence that's going to be in the middle, and it's something that if you removed it, the sentence would still grammatically make sense and it would still work. But you want to give us this information. It's important for some reason. So like the example that I gave here, my mom, comma, who loves movies, comma, is coming over today. So, if there was actually some good reason for me telling you in that sentence, my mom loves movies, then that would be a perfectly fine thing to do. But you see, like you can see on there, you put the comma before the non-essential clause and you put a comma after. Um, and then you can see like how you could remove it and the sentence would still work. The next one I have was just a list. I think we know how that one goes. I bought milk, eggs, and hot sauce at the store. Just commas after the list. I always do the second comma. Like I know people say, well, you don't. You can go like milk, comma, eggs, and hot sauce, or you can put another comma after eggs. I always do the two commas. This is called the Oxford comma. I think it's a stylistic choice. It doesn't really matter. I always just do the second one. I don't know. I think it looks better, but that's personal choice. The next one leading into a quote. So this is whenever we're setting up a quote and we say something like the author writes or the text states or the character says or yells or screams or whispers or whatever it is. Any verb like that you're introducing a quote with, you give us the comma right after that. I don't even know why I put this next one in there, addressing someone by name. Can you hand me that screwdriver, comma, Justin? So yeah, that really would only come into usage if you were writing dialogue for some reason. But yeah, if you're ever addressing someone by name right before that, you give us a comma. And then I have this last one for times when a comma goes in the middle of the sentence. Some of the words I listed here, like if, while, or although. So like I was talking about although, how sometimes it can go in the middle depending on the sentences. If is a big one though. If is an easy one. If you ever start a sentence with if, there's always going to be a comma in there at some point. So like the example I gave, if you are going to the store, comma, pick up some milk. So like whenever you start a sentence with if, it's always like if and then, if this, then this. So the comma always goes in between those two things. Um, and then, yeah, so the other big thing with commas in the middle of the sentence is for using like but or yet or certain words like that. Like the example I gave, I would go to the store, comma, but I am too tired. And I think the way to know if you're supposed to use this is if the subject gets repeated on both sides of the comma. So because I put but I am too tired, you need the comma before the but because it goes on like that. So yeah, again, I think those kind of make sense. Hopefully the examples can help you with that. And yeah, if you can learn those, you'll be pretty good with commas. The titles of things, I'll talk about this one just because this comes into play in some of the writings that we're doing for class. Some things get italicized, some things get quotation marks when we're using the titles of things. Basically, it's like the bigger unit gets italicized, and the smaller unit that fits inside of the bigger one gets quotation marks. So, like a book gets italics, the name of a book, but the name of a chapter within that book gets quotation marks. The name of an academic journal, like if you're getting something from the databases and it's in a journal, the journal would get italicized, and the title of the article or the essay would get quotation marks. Um, Notably, you'll see on here for the essay we're doing now, a play does get its title italicized. So whenever you're using the title whenever you're using the title M Butterfly or Madam Butterfly, you should have those in italics. Okay, and then I just wanted to address the one person who did ask me a legitimate question here. Wanted to ask about the semicolon. They had questions about using a semicolon. So I'll say first of all that I left semicolon off of my sheet for a reason, and that's because you can get through your entire writing career without ever using a semicolon. The semicolon is not necessary. Colon is not really necessary either, but it can be a cool way of writing sometimes. So I did give you the explanations for a colon on there. I'm not going to talk about them now, but for a semicolon, yeah, that's the first thing is don't feel like you have to try to use a semicolon if you don't feel comfortable with it. Just don't try to use it. You don't really need it. But okay, here's when you would use a semicolon. It's when you have two things that could be sentences on their own, but for whatever reason you want to join them together because they're related or something like that. So that's really the only requirement is that you have what could be a complete sentence on either side of the semicolon. A lot of this is another thing that's related to commas, where if you're using a comma, you can't have what could be a complete sentence on both sides. You need to have at least a dependent clause on one of them. So, like, in this case, the thing that I said before, like, um, what was it? I would go to the store, but I am too tired. So since it has a but, they would consider that a dependent clause, right? But with a semicolon, you have what could be its own sentence grammatically. It would be a grammatically correct sentence, but for whatever reason, you want to join them together to make some kind of point. So then you put a semicolon in there. So same thing with like a colon. You have what could be a complete sentence, and then you have the colon, and then what's on the other side of the colon, not a complete sentence. Couldn't be a complete sentence, just like a list or something. So that's the thing with semicolon. That's the real explanation for it. But I know it's kind of confusing, and again, you don't need to use them, so maybe just avoid it. But it can be a cool thing to do sometimes. So if you want to try to use it like that, you got to make sure that what's on each side of it, again, could be a complete sentence. All right. Well, I hope that cleared up some things about grammar. I know I waited until now to talk to grammar, and that's because I don't think grammar is all that important. But I know you guys will get graded on in other classes, and other professors might expect you to know certain grammar things. So I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to ask me some questions about it. And yeah, that's all for now. More videos coming, maybe our last video or two coming on Monday for next week. All right, see you soon.